Hello champions and welcome to my playlist of 5090 Cambridge O-Level Biology. Today's topic is to discuss the structure of cell, and you know that we are using the recommended resource by the Cambridge itself, which is the Hodders biology book. Okay, so let us start discussing what is the structure of a cell. So the structures that we are going to discuss today, which are present in the cells, are basically by and large common to both animal and a plant cell. You remember in the last video we saw this diagram where I told you that this is the general representation of a cell, which is surrounded by a membrane, which is what we call the cell membrane. Then there is a liquid jelly-like material which is called the cytoplasm, and almost in the middle of the cell there is another membrane bound structure which is known as a nucleus. So in both animal as well as plant cell, there is a cell membrane, there is a cytoplasm, and there is a nucleus. So let us start discussing about cell membrane first, okay, and then we will discuss about cytoplasm and then nucleus. So cell membrane is obviously the outer covering of the cell. So this is a very thin layer and it is surrounding the cytoplasm. Okay, and what is the job of the cell membrane? It stops the cell contents from escaping. Obviously, think about this. So you live in a house, and in the house there are walls and boundaries. Okay, what is the job of the walls and boundaries? So that the integrity and the privacy of your house is maintained. So nobody from outside can see inside, and nobody from inside can obviously see outside because of the walls. So similarly, in the cell, there is a complete covering so that nothing escapes from the cell. Okay, however, let me also tell you this concept here, that the cell membrane that we have is not impermeable, which means that substances can pass through the cell membrane into the cell, and some of the substances can pass from the cell to the outside. It's just like this. Let us again take the example of your house. So there are walls obviously, but then there is a nice and good door too. From the door, people can get inside your house and people can get outside the house. Similarly, in the cell membrane, there are small openings or apertures from which some of the ions, water molecules, they can get inside the cell. And obviously, similar contents can also get out of the cell. Therefore, the cell membrane is also known as, listen to this carefully, this is a very important terminology for you. The cell membrane is also called semi-permeable membrane, which means that it is not fully permeable, which means that it is not fully impermeable, but it is semi-permeable. You either call it semi-permeable or you also call it selectively permeable, which basically means the same thing. And in biology, it means that some of the substances can pass and some of the substances cannot pass. Therefore, it is called semi-permeable, not fully permeable. A fully permeable thing would have been something through which everything can go in and out. Okay, so your cell membrane is not fully permeable. It is semi-permeable. It allows some things to get in and out and it stops the others. Now it depends upon the size and charge and so many other things, but this is the term that you have to remember. So first line is clear. It stops the cell contents from escaping and controls which substances can enter and leave. Now, generally speaking, oxygen, food, water, these are the substances which are allowed to enter, and some waste products are allowed to leave the cell, and harmful substances are kept out as well. So if the cell, in the exterior of the cell, when we say exterior of the cell, it means outside the cell. Suppose there is sodium ion, suppose there is potassium ion, and suppose there is something which is very, very toxic. So this toxic substance will not be allowed to enter, but sodium can enter, potassium can enter. If there are water molecules can easily enter as well. Therefore, we call the cell membrane as semi-permeable membrane. Okay, in this way, the cell membrane maintains the structure and chemical reactions of the cytoplasm. So basically, cell membrane is a protective layer. It is checking that what is entering inside the cell, what is exiting out of the cell, and it maintains the inner environment. Okay, very important structure, cell membrane. And obviously I'm telling you again and again that cell membrane is present in both animals as well as plant cells. So this is a structure which is common to both animal and plant cells. Okay, let us now talk about the general concepts of cytoplasm. Now cytoplasm is basically a jelly like material which is present between the cell membrane, which is on the outside, and the nucleus, which is on the inside. So between the cytoplasm and nucleus, whatever jelly-like substance is present, this is all known as cytoplasm. Under the ordinary microscope, when you see a cell in the microscope, which is also called the light microscope, cytoplasm looks like a thick liquid with particles in it. I mean, you see it like this exactly. So this is small particle, this is small particle. So it appears like a liquid with a lot of small particles. Okay, and these particles are actually very important structures, and they are performing important functions. We will discuss about them. Now, if we talk about the plant cells, it may be seen to be flowing about. The cytoplasm is flowing. The particles may be food reserves like oil droplets or granules of starch. So that's more common in plants particularly. Other particles are structures which are called organelles. Now remember this word, students, organelles. Organelles are basically, I call them that organelles are basically small factories. These are small little factories and they are doing some job. For example, we will discuss about them in detail. There is an organelle which is called mitochondria, and this mitochondria is a small factory where energy is produced. You know that in any factory there is something which is produced. So in mitochondria, what is produced? Energy, and we use this energy for all the functions of the cell. So organelle are basically very small factories which have special functions in the cytoplasm. Like I gave you one example, that mitochondria's job is to produce energy. Okay, there are so many other organelles in the cell. In the cytoplasm, large number of chemical reactions are taking place which keep the cell alive by providing energy and making substance that the cell require. The liquid part of the cytoplasm is about 90%, which means that most of the cytoplasm is liquid in structure, okay, with molecules of some salts and some sugars also dissolved in it. Suspended in this solution are larger molecules of lipids, fats and oils, and also proteins. Lipids and proteins may be used to build up the cell structures like membranes of those. So what they're talking about is basically, if you see at a cell, this is a cell here, this is the nucleus here, and suppose there is this little organelle which is called mitochondria, say for example. So it is also bounded by a membrane. It also contains a membrane, so that membrane requires proteins to be forming the membranes basically. Now lipids and proteins may be used to build the cell structures like the membranes. Some of the proteins are enzymes. We will discuss about what are enzymes. They control the rate of a chemical reaction. So sometimes they speeden up the rate of a chemical reaction, sometimes they slows down the rate of a chemical reaction. And some of the enzymes are attached to the membranes of some cellular organelles, some organelles of the cell, while other enzymes are freely floating in the cytoplasm. So imagine the cytoplasm like being a big river or a big ocean. Inside the ocean, so this is a cell membrane, this is the nucleus, so that's a big river. In this there are small boats, and those small boats are many things. For example, they can be organelles, and when we say organelles, I told you organelles means basically factories. Okay, there may be proteins, there may be fats, there may be carbohydrates, there may be enzymes. So all those structures, all those compounds are present in this liquid. So cytoplasm is very rich in terms of a lot of different structures. And obviously with the passage of time, as we go ahead in this biology course, we will discuss all those organelles and their functions. Right now I'm giving you the general idea of how the cell is organized. The cell has a cell membrane, the cell has a cytoplasm, and now let us talk about the nucleus. Nucleus, the plural for which is nuclei, it is the innermost part of any cell. Either it is a plant cell or animal cell. Now it is also surrounded by a membrane, and the membrane of the nucleus is called, imagine what would it be called? Think about it. So the membrane of the cell is called what? Cell membrane. So the membrane of nucleus will be called nuclear membrane. Okay, so this membrane is called nuclear membrane. And you know what is the most special thing about this nucleus? The most special thing about the nucleus is that it contains a very important thing which is known as chromosome. Now chromosomes contain DNA, which is the basic hereditary unit. So for example, from our parents we get a lot of characteristics: our eye color, our hair color, our skin color, our blood group. This information is all that we are getting from our parents, from mother and from the father, and they transfer their chromosomes in our body. So all those chromosomes or genetic information, all the genetic information that we have is present inside the nucleus. Okay, now come and let's read about the nucleus. Most cells contain one nucleus. Now, which means there are some cells which do not contain nucleus as well, and that is true. Your red blood cells actually do not contain a nucleus. Okay, so red blood cell, no nucleus. But anyways, most cells contain one nucleus, which is usually seen as a rounded structure covered by a membrane. And what is that membrane called? I just told you, nuclear membrane. Okay, in drawings of cells, the nucleus may be shown darker than the cytoplasm because in prepared sections it takes up certain stains more strongly than the cytoplasm. And why it takes certain stains more strongly? Because it contains chromosomes. The function of the nucleus is control the type and the quantity of enzymes produced by the cytoplasm. Now that is very important line for you to understand, and I will spend a few minutes to clarify this concept so that you are very clear about this concept. Okay, now students, if somebody asks you, okay, what is the most important molecule in your body which controls all the body functions, your answer should be proteins, and proteins in the form of enzymes. So these are perhaps the most important structures of your body, and these proteins and enzymes control all the functions. So if you are doing respiration, it's because of these proteins. If you are digesting your food, it is because of this protein. If you are reproducing, it is because of proteins. Now proteins are extremely important. I draw a star over here, in fact 2 stars, in fact 3 stars. As many stars are less because proteins are very, very important. Now the point is, this is a cell, and inside the cell there is a nucleus, and inside the nucleus there are chromosomes. Now these chromosomes control the formation of proteins in the cytoplasm. So basically the nucleus is the master regulator. Remember this point. Okay, in a cell, who is the hero of the cell? The hero of the cell, the master regulator of the cell, is the nucleus. Why? Because it controls the formation of proteins. So this is an important point, that any protein or any enzyme which is made up in the cytoplasm is basically controlled by the nucleus. Okay, in this way it regulates the chemical changes that take place in a cell. So it is the master regulator. Nucleus. As a result, the nucleus controls what the cell will be. For example, a blood cell, a liver cell, a muscle cell, or a nerve cell. So nucleus decides that which protein I am going to prepare, and according to the protein, that cell will be differentiated in any specific type of cell. For example, if protein A is made, for example, it will become a liver cell. If protein B is made, it will be a muscle cell, or if protein C is made, it will be a nerve cell. I'm just using these general alphabets A, B, and C. There are names of specific proteins which will help in the formation of liver cell, and all those proteins and enzymes are produced within the nucleus. Therefore nucleus is the master regulator. Okay, now when existing cells divide, new cells are produced, and this is what we call reproduction. The nucleus controls the cell division as shown in this figure. I will take you through the picture in a minute. A cell without a nucleus cannot reproduce. Now that's an extremely important concept. You see, 2 functions of nucleus that you must remember. What are those two functions? I just told you one function, and that was master regulator, control of protein synthesis. So this is the nucleus. If I ask you two functions, the first function was it is the master regulator of protein or enzyme synthesis. Which protein is going to be produced is decided by nucleus. So that's job number one. The other job of the nucleus is to control cell replication. You know, many cells of our body divide. For example, we have inside the bone marrow we have cells which continuously divide. Our digestive system cells continuously divide. Our hair follicles continuously divide. So cells divide like this. So there is a cell here in this picture. If we go through A, B, C and D of this particular figure, this is the cell, and that is an animal cell which is at the moment not dividing. So there is the outer layer which is cell membrane, this is the nucleus, and this is the cytoplasm. But when the cell has to divide, see what happens. The nucleus photocopies itself. It copies itself. Now these two nuclei, what is the plural of nucleus? Nuclei. These two nuclei are exactly photocopy of each other. They are Xerox copy of each other. They are exactly same. They are identical. They are absolutely twin nuclei. So this nucleus is exactly same as this nucleus. Okay, so nucleus first divides, and then you see the cytoplasm divides like this. They are already starting to take shape of two different cells, and ultimately you now have two different cells. So this is one complete cell. There is a cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus, and this is the other complete cell. There is a cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus. Okay, so two cells are formed. This cell division, this reproduction is also controlled by the nucleus. So two jobs of nucleus that you must remember: it is the master regulator because it controls protein synthesis, enzyme synthesis, and it controls replication of cells. Okay, now since now you know that it controls the replication of cells, think about those cells which do not contain a nucleus. Do you think those cells will be able to divide? The answer is no. Those cells will not be able to divide. Okay, because they do not contain a nucleus. Simple. So your red blood cells. Now take an example of your red blood cell. You in your blood have different type of cells. One of them is called red blood cell. The other one are called white blood cells. Okay, so red blood cells do not contain a nucleus. They have a cell membrane, they have cytoplasm, but no nucleus. Now since they do not have a nucleus, they cannot divide, and therefore they die after 120 days. So the lifespan of a red blood cell is only 120 days. After 120 days, 4 months, you get new red blood cells produced in the body, but this one does not divide. It will die. It will die after 120 days. Okay, this is the very important line which is written here: a cell without a nucleus cannot reproduce. It cannot reproduce. Okay, now inside the nucleus are thread-like structures which are called chromosomes. I just told you that, which can be seen most easily at the time when the cell is dividing. Okay, so what we have done in this video is discussed a general concept related to the structure of cell. Now the discussion included the discussion on cell membrane, cytoplasm as well as nucleus. These structures are common in animal as well as plant cell. So whatever discussion we have just completed is pertaining to both animal and plant cell. Okay, so I'm stopping the video here. In the next video what we will do is we will talk about specific characteristics of a plant cell. So take care of yourself, students, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Take care of yourself.